The new Grinch stealing Christmas from your kids? Then, playing crazy? Would paying TSA agents more money stop the pat-down problem on the Biz Block Saturday?
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
It was actually a rather slow day here in Britain. I was in number 10. The Prime Minister had left that morning to go down to Brighton to make a speech.
The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors.
One of my assistants came in and said, another plane was thrown into another tower. And I really couldn't believe it. I said, it must just be the film being shown again. Are you sure you got that right? And he said, no, there's been another one.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror.
My first call was from Tony Blair down in Brighton. He was saying, I think what I should do is cancel my speech. I can't stay down here with this having happened. I have to come up to London.
In Brighton, Blair instead delivered remarks addressing the attacks that had taken place in America.
I'm afraid we can only imagine the terror and the carnage there, and the many, many innocent people that will have lost their lives. I know that you would want to join with me in sending the deepest condolences to President Bush and to the American people on behalf of the British people at these terrible events.
Blair's support for America was immediate and unwavering.
During the days of the Blitz, there was side by side with us at that time. And that nation was America, and those people were the American people. And I say to you, we stand side by side with you now, without hesitation.
While some were giving condolences, Tony Blair was saying our country will stand with you, and you can rely upon us to be a strong ally. And he totally understood in the early hours of post 9/11 that this was different.
Somebody must keep their word.
On domestic politics, the President and the Prime Minister came from different camps, but the September 11th attacks triggered the same reaction in both leaders, that Islamist terror was the preeminent threat to the free world and that their countries would have to take the offensive against it.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Al-Qaeda is to terror, but the Mafia is to crime. But its goal is not making money. Its goal is remaking the world and imposing its radical beliefs on people everywhere.
This mass terrorism is the new evil in our world today. We, the democracies of this world, are going to have to come together to fight it together and eradicate this evil completely from our world.
I've seen a lot of this building for some time. Now, I would take a different view today, incidentally. I think the roots of this are even deeper than I thought then. To most people, it was the first major terrorist attack, of course, and it was the worst and the most awful and so on. But it wasn't the only thing, and it didn't come out of nowhere, really. And therefore, to me, suddenly a whole lot of things started to make sense.
It changed Tony Blair's attitudes fundamentally. 9/11 for him was a defining moment, as it was for the American people. But that moment of 9/11 really galvanized him into realizing this was an incredibly important moment in history and needed to be responded to accordingly.
Bush and Blair worked hard formulating a response to the attacks.
We're in Marine One, flying back to the White House September 11th. And as we flew over the Pentagon, the President looked down. Marine One banked right to land on the south lawn of the White House. And the President could see the Pentagon smoldering on fire. And he said to nobody in particular, he just said it out loud, the mightiest building in the world is on fire. That's the face of war in the 21st century.
The next morning he managed to get President Bush on the telephone and he had a good conversation with him. And then of course, as you know, he then flew over to America because he wanted to pay his respects in New York, and went there to New York and went to a memorial service for victims of the tragedy.
So honored the British Prime Minister has crossed an ocean to show his unity with America. Thank you for coming, friend.
It was both, I think, a reflection of the President's personal gratitude that Blair was so quickly to come to his side and make it clear that the UK stood with the United States.
It was just a recognition that President Bush really is the type of leader who knows that it's important to say thank you.
Before the president delivered his address, he spoke to Blair at length.
The two men were alone in the residence in the Blue Room, which is on the second floor, and it was about 45 minutes before the speech, and Prime Minister Blair was like, I can totally appreciate it, sir, if you need me to leave so you can prepare for this. And President Bush said, no, I know exactly what I want to say. I don't need to look at my notes anymore.
He said, don't you want to be alone? I said, no, I want to be with my friend. I didn't say it that way, but that's what I meant.
And Tony was amazed because whenever he gives a speech, he's psyching himself up, he's practicing the speech, he's limbering up for it. But President Bush said, no, I practiced the speech earlier, I'm ready for it, I'm going to give it as soon as I get there. And he was very relaxed about it in a remarkable way, and it was a terrific speech that he gave.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
And Tony Blair was proud to be there in the gallery, listening to that speech and demonstrating the solidarity we all felt for the American people in that time of attack.
America has no truer friend than Great Britain. Once again, we are joined together in a great cause.
For President Bush, you know, the question really was Tony Blair going to be his Winston Churchill? And it turns out, yes indeed. Yes indeed.
Coming up, war in Iraq.
This isn't just America or America and its close ally, the UK. This is something on behalf of our way of life.
How Bush and Blair decided to take on Saddam Hussein and topple his dictatorial regime.